Yeah, I'm thinking I'm back.
I'm back.
Well, I'm back. After a month away from doing any sort of writing, editing, or video making, I'm back. And while I'm well aware that I'm no big name, well, I'll still come up with an explanation for my absence. For like the one guy who cares. I got married, and now I'm married. My wife is an amazing and beautiful person. I can't believe how lucky I am to have her in my life and to be married to her. I love her deeply. So after honestly the perfect wedding day, we went on a month-long holiday to the United States where we did a bunch of different incredible things. We saw a whole lot of cities, and while this is now just starting to sound like a school report or something like that where I literally just recount every goddamn event that happened to me, I'll get to my point. During the month or so that I've been away, I saw some movies. Also during this month, I had no time to work on anything. So whoop bam, poof, here comes some quick reviews to catch up. My god, did those sound effects sound so good. So welcome to my real quick, but actually not so quick, bunch of reviews, catch up video after my absence for like a month. Alright, damn it, let's talk about the talk of the town, the hot shit of the past month, the movie that nobody can ever stop talking about at the moment, It. So being a massive fan of things that aren't the original movie, nor the source material, I wasn't all too familiar with the story of It, or Pennywise as a character for that matter. And so I went in with no real expectation, and I gotta say, yeah, it's a pretty cool movie. It felt very nostalgic despite I myself being too young to actually have lived in the time it was set. It still had this sort of lost energy that you don't get from a lot of other movies today. It also had some likable characters who grew on me. I gotta say, at first, the main kids kinda came off as like little shitheads, but I don't know, they grew on me. And the film eventually made me care for them. The story behind it all was actually really inventive. I mean, for a story that was written decades ago, it still felt pretty fresh to me. But now let's get to the real substance of the movie, the whole point, the scares, the scare factor. I'll start off by saying that there were some sufficient spooks. The film often used the character of Pennywise, get this, wisely, I should be a clown, and often had him come off as sort of a mystical character, something to fear. When it kept to this side of the character, the film really worked for me. But it was when it started to rely a little too heavily on jump scares and up the silly factor that it started to lose me. At points, the film would just relinquish any source of mystery and thus entirely remove the creepiness. When you see it all and when it's all explained to you, it's not something to fear anymore. It's just, well, a movie. And look, I don't need to see arms being torn off and silly teeth coming out of the clown's mouth. I don't need to be explained every little thing. I also have to say that the story overall also relies a little too heavily on Pennywise in general. Hear me out. Pennywise isn't its actual form, right? So why leave a default for the audience to latch onto? If we never see this thing's true form, we can only imagine what it must be. Giving it a default physical appearance sort of gives us a break from the tension. Yes, it could technically be anything and should represent the main characters and our greatest fears. But in the end, we just know that he's going to be a clown in the next scene, so who cares? He's basically just a clown to us, and that's it. And sometimes he turns into other things. Alright, whatever, ramble session over. It did feel fresh and inventive. It was appropriately dark and unpleasant, and it had me care. So props there. I also just have to mention the one scene that really took the cake for me. Is that a saying? I don't know. Anyway, it's the scene in the bathroom where the blood spurts out of the sink and covers the entire room. Now, this part initially seemed kind of silly, but what really made it for me was when the girl's dad, what's her name? Beverly? When her dad says that he can't see anything wrong. Now, that is what's creepy to me. Being isolated like that, being in a really messed up situation, but nobody else seeing what's messed up about it. That creeps me out. Not big teeth or weird dancing. I'd rate it a 7.25 out of 10. Moving on. Wind frickin' River. Oh boy, oh boy. This is a slow, depressing journey, and it'd even probably be pretty hard for some to watch, to be honest. Figuratively, and unfortunately literally, because you can't see it anywhere. It's dead. Nobody's even heard of the damn thing, and it's not showing anywhere. But you know what? If you do get a chance to see this, I highly, highly recommend it. I don't really want to get into saying too much about it, because I knew absolutely nothing going in, and I was all the better for it, but what I will say is that it blew me away. Jeremy Renner and Elizabeth Olsen are much more than just silly superhero actors. They're auteurs. And look, I really hate when people say stuff like that, but let's just let it slide here because I think they really proved something here. This is a darkly beautiful film consisting of some of the most intense scenes I've seen in cinemas this year. Late into the game, once we're really getting to Wind River, it does not hold back. Some of it is borderline unbearable, and I think that's powerful. Wind River is probably not a movie that's ever going to be talked about a whole lot, lot, but if there's one worthy of it, well, this is definitely one. I'd rate Wind River a 9.75 out of 10. Next up is Mother. Mother. Okay, so this is a controversial movie, and so suitably, I have a controversial opinion on it. I think it just may well be the best, if not at least one of the best that I've seen this year. But hell, I certainly understand that it's not for everyone. I even understand if you hate it, which many do. But if you're anything like me, if you like the kinds of films I do and for the reasons I do, well, you just may find one of your favorite movies of all time in this weird as hell, confusing and nonsensical masterpiece. Walking in, I didn't really know too much about this movie. So when the movie actually started, like many, I wasn't entirely sure where it was headed. Hell, I wasn't even entirely sure what genre it was. And I guess now that I think about it, I still kind of don't. What followed was a hilarious, dark, satirical, scary, uncomfortable, and most of all, riveting piece of cinema. Still being sort of unsure on how I was supposed to feel about certain things, I just have to say that I love how interpretable this film is. There are so many ways to look at it, so many angles to come into it from. Is it speaking about fame and fortune? Is it speaking about being the partner of an artist and the struggles that come along with that? Is it all about God and religion? Is it about social anxiety and being uncomfortable in lots of situations? Is it about humanity as a whole? Look, you know what? It's probably about all of those things, but also, honestly, a whole lot more too. There's probably heaps of things that I missed, and that makes me really excited, yet I also kind of dread watching it again. Mother is also one of the scariest films I've ever seen, in a way. It's not something that haunts you in the bump of the night, but it's just something that kind of sticks with you. Throughout, I found myself wanting a break. I found myself being overwhelmed by the happenings on screen. Once out, it was hard to even explain what had happened in the film. It's amazingly layered, confusing, and even a little bit funny. Mother is easily one of the weirdest movies I've seen in my life. Also, I just wanted to talk about a little theory on this film too. After seeing the film, my beautiful wife was telling me how the whole thing felt like a dream, and that is a goddamn perfect description of this movie. Everything made sense while watching, but really when you try and piece everything together, when you try and remember what order everything happened in, and when you try to explain the logic behind it all, it's all just kind of a mess. I would rate Mother a 9.75 out of 10. Next up is American Assassins. Surprise, surprise, I don't really have too much to say on this one. It was fine, I liked it, and it was entertaining. I like Dylan O'Brien. He's cool. He looks different. He has a beard. I also like Michael Keaton. He looks the same. He doesn't have a beard. Oh my god. Anyway, this is just a silly movie about spies and guns and explosions. It ain't no Mother or Wind River, but it'll get you through 2 hours. My only minor complaint is that it takes itself painfully seriously, with almost no sense of humor about itself at all. Like, chill movie. I get it. The characters are serious, the situations are serious, and you want to be taken seriously, but half of your movie is about a supervillain trying to blow up a city or something, so maybe just have a bit of fun while you're at it. I'd rate American Assassin a 6.5 out of 10. I hate to say it, but with high expectations behind this one, well, it ended up disappointing me. God damn it, yes, Jake Gyllenhaal is the man, and he does an amicable job here. It's not like I didn't buy in. But there was just something lacking here, the emotional depth of it all. I just didn't care all that much about it, and that sounds extra horrible, knowing that this is all, of course, based on a true story behind the Boston Marathon bombing and the consequences of it. Yet still, I didn't like the main character very much, and look, that was kind of the point, but it was still graining on me throughout. And in the end, the film just felt sort of uninspired to me. It was still perfectly good, don't get me wrong, I did enjoy it. It still hit some really high notes for me, but sorry, Patriots Day is better. And I almost can't believe that I'm even saying that. Mark Wahlberg over Jake Gyllenhaal? I must have gone insane. What I will say I appreciated about the film, though, is ironically the thing that I also kind of didn't like about the movie. The main character, again, is unlikable. And I think it's great that the movie didn't straight up just make this guy a full-on angel in every possible way. In the end, Jeff Bowman isn't a hero or all that inspirational. And that's kind of a glowing factor for me, funnily enough, because he's just a guy. He didn't ask for this, he wasn't supposed to be viewed as anybody special. Fame was never for him, and being considered a hero would never really have suited him. He's a everyman, he's me, he's you, until this horrible thing happens to him. And that part of it is a really interesting concept to me. I love that Jeff Bowman is just a guy. Jonga still had some really great performances, and it's certainly a competent piece of cinema, but it just never hits the highs I really wanted it to. And in the end, I was left just a little bit disappointed. I would rate Stronger a 7 out of 10. Home Again. I hate to admit it, but this movie was kind of alright. Look, it was cheesy as hell, and half of it felt super artificial. Like, these were not real people or real situations in any way, but there was just something about this that was all just kind of cute. Hell, maybe it was just how I felt that day, but whatever. I kind of just sat there and enjoyed this. It wasn't overly original, it certainly wasn't Oscar-worthy or super serious in any way, but goddamn, it was just kind of nice, alright? And after watching Wind River, I think I deserved it, damn it. I'd rate Home Again a 6.75 out of 10, and that feels seems kind of generous now that I think about it, but whatever, that's fine. The dinner. Another one that you probably haven't heard of. This one is kind of a mystery, but it's played out in a way that you probably wouldn't expect. Based on a book of the same name, The Dinner follows these parents of some teenage boys who've recently gotten themselves into some sort of trouble. For the duration of the film, these parents are having dinner together with the intentions of getting to the bottom of things regarding their sons. And it's super interesting. Throughout the entire film, it continuously poses some complex moral questions that had me thinking and ultimately had me discussing with those I saw it with like 2 hours after we'd walked out. And the crazy thing is, this film has a 4.6 on IMDb. A 4.6? Come on, that's crazy. The Dinner is sorely underrated. It's clever, heavily layered, and plays out in a really fun and interesting way. It kind of felt like something I hadn't really seen before in that sort of way. The Dinner is surprisingly funny, has some fantastic writing and witty dialogue to back it up, and by the end even had me questioning myself and what I'd do in such a situation. 9 out of 10. Alright, lastly, and after just getting back, I saw Kingsman: The Golden Circle. So Kingsman 2 is basically just about what you'd expect. Like the first, it's got a cartoonishly evil villain, some fantastically done, over-the-top violence incorporated into some impressively creative fight scenes, and accompanying these things comes a slightly off-center sense of humor to really bring it home. Kingsman 2 is just a bunch of silly fun, and really that's all that I hope for from the sequel. I've read though that many were disappointed by this one after having loved the first, and I have to say, I don't really get that. I don't really see what people loved about the first that they didn't about the second. They were honestly pretty similar, to be honest. I wouldn't say one or the other was clearly any better or worse. I do have one complaint about this film though, and this overlaps into my one complaint from the first. So the first Kingsman film is fantastic. I think that that's a pretty popular opinion. But one thing that I completely hated about the film was its very, very last impression, leaving a sour taste in my mouth. This film keeps up with silliness and humor throughout, but in the very last shot of the film, it takes it that one step too far, and it just becomes a juvenile joke about anal sex, and god damn, it infuriates me. And as far as I know, this wasn't an unpopular opinion. With much praise for the movie, many felt like me, and there was at least a tiny bit of backlash against this very last moment, wrecking it just a little bit. Look, I'm over it. I mean, not really, but I'm over it. I'm an adult man. I can forget about it. But in Kingsman 2, it's clear that they regretted this decision from the first, and they try to soften the blow by having the main character actually end up being with this woman from the end of the first. In this, she is actually a character, she's actually a human. So props to the film there. They sort of made up for it. But, like halfway through the movie, they introduced yet another weirdly sexual situation that totally didn't fit in. It came out of nowhere, and once it was over, it was pretty much forgotten about. It may be a minor complaint, but I just don't understand why it was included. It felt really out of place to me, and I'm not sure if I'm alone in this opinion or not. But it was written intentionally to be this way, but they really went out of their way to make that so. It was weird, alright? But in the end, Kingsman 2 was still really fun, and I enjoyed the hell out of it. The action was fresh and cartoonishly climactic, the tone hit the exact right amount of silliness, and everyone in it did a great job too. I'd rate Kingsman 2 an 8 out of 10. Okay, I'm done. You can go now. That is all. I'm back. Look forward to more videos. Whoa.